Nance, what did you think of this movie?
You want to hear what I think, McCurdy?
I want to know the truth.
Well, so the Pierce era I watched as a kid.
Got it.
And rewatching them for this, I didn't remember all of them per se. Craig era, I've seen them all in my later years, so they're all pretty fresh in my mind. Casino, I've always really liked, and that's probably the one I've seen the most. And then this is one of the Craig era films that did leave us, like, not the greatest taste in my mouth. But on rewatch for this show, it's good. Nothing sticks out to me as a big red flag, or you mentioned the editing. As a layman, I suppose I don't notice that sort of thing, I guess.
Interesting.
Did it register with you?
No.
Okay.
Did not register in my mind.
Were you awake when you watched the movie?
I was. I watched it twice.
Looking at the evidence. And I know you're like, I like this movie. This movie's underrated. I think really what it comes down to when I think about this movie, you're right. It's not like Nan's reaction. You watch it, it's not the worst movie. I've seen the worst movie. We've talked about the other movies. The other movies, there are ones that are worse than this movie. This movie's not bad, but it is forgettable. There's other movies, I think, in the franchise that are way more memorable. And I think that I think sometimes if we get too deep in the snooty things, because again, like Mark Forrester is making a lot of choices in this movie because he's like, well, I want to have fire, earth, and water. I want to have the bad guy not be grotesque. I want to have this. We know that he's doing all these things, but I feel like you get too deep in it, and then you kind of forget, like, wait, why am I here? Oh, that's right. I'm here to promote a film that, guys want to be this dude, girls want to sleep with this guy. And if I'm at the end of this movie and I see it and I don't feel that way, I feel like you failed. And actually watching this now, it reminds me a lot more of License to Kill. And in License to Kill, we talked about how that movie is a good 80s action movie. It's a really good 80s action movie. It's not a really good Bond movie. And I feel like this is a really good Bourne early 2000s clone. It's not bad, but when I'm looking at all of the Bond films and overall, I just feel like I forget this one. I'm just like, oh yeah, that movie.
That makes sense.
You saying that it's forgettable, valid, right? Me, I like this movie because I think it's a really intelligent movie. Tomorrow Never Dies was a big dumb action movie, whereas this is a big smart movie that's bogged down by too much action.
I think it gets too plotty too.
That stuff I like though.
I know you like it.
I'm the story guy.
I know you like it. I know. Okay, like I know. That's the other thing is, let me read this quote real quick, because I think like this kind of speaks very much to what we're talking about in this movie and like his Forrester's thinking. Because Bond plays it real, I thought the political circumstance should be real too. Even though Bond shouldn't be a political film, I thought the more political I make it, the more real it feels. Not just with Bolivia and what's happening in I want to say Tahiti. It's not Tahiti. Haiti. Is it Haiti? Haiti. Sorry. Thank you. Let me redo that. I don't know why my brain's not working today.
Haiti.
All right. Hold on. All right. Charlie, back up. George Bush is in the house.
Dude, George Bush never left.
Because Bond plays it real, I thought the political circumstance should be real too. Even though Bond shouldn't be a political film, I thought the more political I make it, the more real it feels. Not just with Bolivia, but with Haiti. But with all these corporations like Shell and Chevron saying they're green because it's so fashionable to be green, during the Cold War, everything was very clear. The good guys and the bad guys. Today, there's much overlapping of the good and the bad. It isn't as moral distinct because we all have both elements in us. Okay, I get it.
That's why this is a smart movie. That's why this is a good movie. For everything he just said. I've never heard that quote, but I pick up on all of that watching it.
But I don't give two shits. And it's the same reason.
You just want TNA.
I want a movie where I'm like, I know what's... Okay, here's the thing. It's not just the action. Listen, Chucky Rants, you can go on and all day about how this is such a smart movie and like there's like it has deep meaning and it's talking about today. You can say all of that. But if the movie's not giving me a reason to give a shit, then why should I give a shit? And I feel like the movie doesn't do a good job of doing that. And when I say that, it's the same reason why the first Timothy Living Daylights. Living Daylights is a movie that, again, it's similar in that it's talking about what was currently going on at that point in time and trying to be real. And we're like, we're going to be real. We're going to talk about the Taliban. We're going to talk about this Russian invasion. We're going to talk about that stuff. And I'm like, it's great. It's happening in the headlines.
But they really don't, though. Those things are there, but it's all confused, and there's...
I'll signal Amsterdam to ship the diamonds.
He arranged for the Russians to buy a large quantity of high-tech weapons. He's using the down payment to buy this opium instead.
Our obsessively in-depth analysis of the plot of that movie revealed that there really isn't anything going on. The Russian invasion of Afghanistan isn't the plot. It's just a setting for the third act. Otherwise, it's all a very pointlessly elaborate scheme to trick James Bond into killing one Russian general so that another general can buy some weapons. And then on top of that, it's not that the stakes are big or small, it's just that there are zero stakes whatsoever.
All I'm saying is the stakes of the overall movie, and you're gonna, I know what you're going to say already. You're going to say, yeah, Ryan, the stakes of this movie are not about the plotty things that are happening.
The Bolivians. It's not about the Bolivian
stuff. It's not the Bolivian stuff. It's about him and Vesper and all that. Great.
It's about Camille.
Tamia and her revenge and all that.
Bond and Camille trying to get revenge, and he learned something from her. But it's not about the Bolivians and their water, because we just see some Bolivians at some point, but it's like they don't get, just like the Taliban, they don't give us enough to care about. But it's more not the world-ending stakes, but the big dangerous stakes are that Spectre is going to have a lot more power.
This is the world's most precious resource. We need to control as much of it as we can. Bolivia must be top priority.
Sure.
A lot more power and influence. But the personal stakes are that Bond is dealing with losing Vesper and being on this murderous path.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Camille is on the same path, and she gets her revenge, and then at the end, she's like, it's all wrapped up in that scene together where she's like, now what do I do?
But I keep thinking, he's dead. Now what?
And he's like, well, now you can heal your country. And she's like, that's a good idea.
You have your quantum of solace.
Yeah.
It took all of this to get Bond to Russia. And then that's where he has that choice. Am I going to take my bloody revenge, or am I going to do right by M and my organization, and I'm going to put this Vesper stuff behind me? And like, again, throw the snooty hat on. When it comes to the cinematography of this movie, everything is a desert vista. All the colors are this desert vista. Black, brown, amber, cyan, all very much fall colors. Even down to that first photo of Vesper, it takes place in the fall. Every single shot follows this color layout. Whereas Casino was like spring and then summer.
For sure.
This movie then goes through this fall. You know, it's all following this like almost like a life cycle. Ends in winter, ends in the snow. That's all on purpose. That's all obviously done intentionally, especially with Mr. Forster, who is a smart guy. And it's all a very nice touch. It doesn't specifically make this movie better than the others, per se. Same goes for the whole Earth, Wind, and Fire thing with the action scenes. But these are just nice touches that lend to this overall theme of death and revenge.
If somebody tells me, oh, what do you remember out of most of these movies? Like if I'm like, oh, what do you remember of Tomorrow Never Dies? I'm like, oh yeah, the motorcycle chase scene. That's badass. Or GoldenEye would be, there's a lot more stuff I would remember in GoldenEye, or even Casino. But this movie, I'm like, the opera? I remember the opera.
Yeah.
I remember the car chase. If I had recently watched it, I'd be like, oh yeah, the exploding hotel. I would remember that. The opera scene, I liked the opera scene. Here's the one thing I wish the movie maybe it could have done. I feel like the movie does this. The writing is like, okay, they wanted to go in this direction. They knew that they were going to do the story with Vesper and everything and how he was going to feel after the fact, right? But it felt like the movie was like, okay, all right, but the story's going to go this way. Bond's going to investigate this thing that's all the way over here, and then we have to, by the end of the movie, we have to come back to this other, because I will say, like, when you watch the end of the movie, you're like, oh yeah, the necklace from Casino, like that, and she's wearing the necklace, okay, I kind of remember that, but I feel like the movie's so, like, go left off. Yeah, for me, I was, like, watching this, like, oh yeah, that's right, the necklace that she got. That's the same one that
we
had
just have
Vesper
a better memory than you have. I think when you say it's not memorable, I think it's because your kids have killed your memory.
We see the necklace multiple times in this movie.
When? Yeah. When is the other time you see the necklace in the movie?
When he's drinking on the airplane.
Oh, yeah.
He's drinking Vesper martinis on the airplane.
Yeah, 6 of them.
He hides it from Mathis, but then Mathis is like, I've got pills that help you forget.
My point is that I wish maybe they made the villain the same person Instead of having Dominic Green being this other character, and then we come back to the
Make it
boyfriend.
Mr. White again?
No, make the boyfriend character that she had, make that guy the villain. Make that guy the one that he's
That would
chasing
make
instead.
sense.
Why wouldn't it make sense?
If Dominic Green had been the boyfriend,
Well, not Dominic Green. Make the guy, that character, the boyfriend character, and then you find out that there's more to that. Like, I would have been more on board and then been like, it's more focused to what's Bond's story.
you're saying that the guy who tricked Vesper would end up having been Dominic Green?
The main, or, I mean, maybe it's not Dominic Green. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a different character altogether, because that was originally the intention when they were writing this. I just think it would have made it would have made the story a little more focused on this Bond thing instead of we're going off into, because it really does feel like the more we talk about it, it feels like Mark Forster really got excited about talking about real world politics and real world stuff. And it's like, that's great, but you do have to remember at the end of the day, we're making a franchise film for people to go sit and watch and have fun with. And we can still do that, but like at the end of the movie, if I don't give a shit, like I feel like I wasted my then $8 or whatever it was. That's my point.
If there's a moment where I just don't give a
I feel like here's where we're at. I feel like your point is like this movie's underrated, and I think you made your point pretty clear. Like when you really sit down and look at the movie and what it's trying to say, it is smart. I'm not disagreeing with you there.
I think it's also well executed.
There's things that like I think worked for some people, things that didn't work for some people, and I think we agreed on that too. I think when it comes down to the end of the movie, I just feel like it would have been nice to have just a little bit of what I think we would call maybe more of a comic book or black and white type ending. And I feel like we don't 100% get that because the movie wants to tell this Bolivian story. Something, there could have been more to it. And I just feel like I just don't give a shit by the end of the movie because I'm like, okay, what's at stake here? And it's more of this big real world stuff.
I think that's just a sign that Bond gets over Vesper, right? Not necessarily directly for himself, but he helps Camille do exactly the same thing, and that's enough for him to satisfy.
That's why I also bring up The Living Daylights, because I feel like The Living Daylights lives in that weird world of like, we're going to bring real world issues into the movie, so much so that I'm like, okay, great, but I want to just have something that like, if this doesn't happen, people are going to die, and we will literally see the implications of that.
This is where I pull out the personal thing, because Bond really is. That's why they have that moment at the bottom of that cave where that sinkhole.
Seems we're both using green to get to somebody.
Bond is trying to f up Quantum. That's the thing. That's like somebody out there going to be like, well, what are the stakes? Bond fails and Quantum makes money. And it's like, yeah, this cancer grows. This cancer that just so happened to also kill Vesper grows. So naturally, Bond cutting off a tentacle is always good.
I think movies are not low stakes. I just think movies are typically better if it's a little more clear and we're talking about a very specific thing versus something that is not intellectual or not something that is like,
this is a part of the thing. This is exactly what we talked about at the end of For Your Eyes Only, where it's like the big stakes are the ATAC, but then the small stakes are that, what's her name, Greek?
But I'm half Greek. And Greek women, like Electra, always avenge their loved ones.
Electra chick gets her revenge. So you have these two things at once. You have Camille going in there and getting her revenge, and then you have Bond cutting off a tentacle, and I'm there with them. I want to see them go in. I want to see her kill this rapist. I want to see all these corrupt motherfuckers get their comeuppance. And Bond spares. I mean, he could have just dropped Green into the fire and he'd be like, ah! Just drop that demon into the hellfire. Instead, he lets him go so he can go save Camille. They have that great moment where obviously she's reliving. He's holding her like a child for a reason because she's reliving the very thing that literally and psychologically scarred her when she was a kid.
He shot my father. He did things to my mother and my sister. And I strangled them while I watched. I was too young to be in any trouble. So he just smiled at me and set the house on fire. Go this way. Go this way. Like you said, take a deep breath. Make it count.
And it's very reminiscent of him supporting Vesper in the shower.
Yes.
But water
Totally.
and fire instead.
Yes. Again, Mark Forster knows what he's doing.
It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Once they get out of there, then he goes and...
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one. Hopefully it'll work.
Then he goes and grabs up Green, and Green, Green spills his guts on Quantum, and then Bond gives him the perfect death. I said last episode, I'm like, fitting deaths aren't really a part of this anymore because it's more just action movie deaths, which is fine because we're living in this real world thing. Like his cohort just kind of blows up. It's, that's not like a fitting death or whatever. I don't even know what a fitting death for him would be otherwise, is my point. But no, Green gets the most perfect fitting death, especially as an echo of him having killed Strawberry Fields. He killed her with oil in her lungs.
Her lungs are full of it.
And now he's got oil in his stomach.
They found motor oil in his stomach.
He wanted to steal all this water, and then Bond leaves him in a desert with motor oil. Perfect. The same thing he promised everybody is what he got in the end, was that motor oil. Like, that is a perfect fitting death. This, I know you agree with, McCurdy, that Mark Forster is a smart dude. The guys who wrote this, especially Paul Haggis, really brought it. It's not the content for me. It's the form that it comes in sometimes, right? And whether it's the writer's strike or otherwise, there are these little blemishes, but me being the story guy and the bad guy, I fucking love the story as a cap on, again, a chaser to the expensive, amazing vodka, not necessarily the full martini shaken, not stirred, but the incredible vodka that was Casino. And this is that chaser that takes the burn away, literally and figuratively with Bond's acceptance. And it all builds up to that moment where he says,
I need you back.
I never left.
That's the whole point of that. I never left. Now I'm ready to go. And then they follow that up with the first official turn and shoot, other than the Casino one, but not counting that as the same thing. Boom. Now Bond is Bond. We said last episode, this is Bond becoming Bond. Bond became Bond for 2 minutes, and then this whole thing kind of just solidifies it. And that's where it's like, I think it's like the perfect complementary piece. It's got some blemishes,
the one guy
but it's all
he
there.
really, really wanted to kill is the one he doesn't kill in the movie.
Yeah, and that says something.
Just shows maturity and growth of Bond to like, okay.
Yeah. Now M's like, now I know I can trust you.
Do it for the job. Do it for the mission.
So you want me to be half monk, half hitman?
Any thug can kill. I want you to take your ego out of the equation and to judge the situation dispassionately. I have to know I can trust you.
And you don't?
Well, it'd be a pretty cold bastard who didn't want revenge for the death of someone he loved. You had to kill him. Couldn't bring him in for questioning so that we might actually learn something. What happened to Slade?
I'm not dwelling on the past. I don't think you should either.
If you could avoid killing every possible lead, it would be deeply appreciated.
I'll do my best.
Is he still alive?
He is.
I'm surprised. Did you find what you were looking for?
Yes.
Good. I assume you have no regrets.
I don't. What about you?
Of course not. That would be unprofessional.
Let me put it this way. I'm looking at this list and I'm like, okay, where's Chucky going to put it, right? Where's Chucky Rance going to put it? For me, it's better than You Only Live Twice. It's better than Diamonds Are Forever. It's better than Moonraker. Is it better than Living Daylights? Charlie's like, well, the story's better. I'm like, okay.
Living Daylights.
Is it better than Octopussy? You're like, yeah, it's not that stupid muddled story. Okay, cool. Is it better than Dumb Action Movie? Yeah, I guess, because it's not dumb. It's the smart action movie. It doesn't have the same weird plot conveniences as Thunderball. For me, it's like Our Majesty's Secret Service is where I'm, personally for me, I'm torn because it's like, I like that movie. I think it's a little more clear. I think the action is cut better. There are scenes where I'm like, I enjoy that movie overall. I have a much better time watching that movie than I do this movie. But I feel like you would be like, no, it's better than that movie. And then I feel like we get in some weird territory where it's like, starts to feel like we're in the right realm for Your Eyes Only, A View to a Kill, and A World Is Not Enough. It's somewhere in those three movies for you, I think. Or you're going to be some bullshitter motherfucker being like, no, it's better than The Man with a Golden Gun.
Why don't you tell us where you are?
Hang on, Nance, hang on. McCurdy, you just stripped my armor from me.
You stripped it from me.
Let me lay down the armor for a second.
I have no armor left.
Oh, okay.
I love you, dog. You just jumped into my heart and my soul and my mind. It's like you know me. Like everything. It's like you know me. You just went through my thought process. It's like you know me better than I know me, dog. It's like
I'm yours.
You're always there for me. to like yell at me when I like
Chucky,
Golden
shut
Gun
the
too much.
Hey,
And then you talk mad game about.
whoa,
I love
whoa.
you, dog. It's like
Whoa.
I love you so much. I
Shut
need
the
you
up.
in my life. I need
You know
you. You know what I'm saying?
You know why you need to shut the up, right? Because
Why?
you don't let anybody see you bleed.
Never let them see you bleed.
And you're bleeding right now, and I can't do that. Not on this podcast.
Always have an escape plan.
Wipe these tears away. You know what
All
I'm
right,
saying?
listen, shut the up. I like Honor Majesty's Secret Service because I think
know
the
you
stakes
do.
are much clearer. I
You
think
like
the
that
action
one?
is much clearer.
Hipster.
I think it's a better movie. But because we're doing this bullshit list that's all fucked up anyway, it doesn't matter. When you look at the movies, it is a
We've only spent
list.
2 years on this.
It's 2 years of listening to somebody say better movie, better shutters, and somebody complaining about other bullshit. And
What
then
would the
somebody
better? Hang on it. Pause. What would Scott's reaction be to this movie? Better fast editing. Better redheads. Like, what would he do?
It is better redheads. I will say that. I'll give you
Better
that.
opera.
But hold on, shut up.
Now
I
better
do think
more water.
Here's
more
the thing.
water.
When I think about these movies, it does remind me of A View to a Kill and For Your Eyes Only, where the stakes are not like this. It's not this grand. I get the eye, like it's not as grandized, like very clear stakes. That is great with GoldenEye and some of the better movies, in my personal opinion, where it's like, okay, if this doesn't happen, the world's gonna fucking end. It's not that. It's more like this doesn't happen. You said the cancer's gonna spread, right? So that's where I'm like, yeah, View to a Kill or For Your Eyes Only is in that same realm. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, like that 10 or 11 spot is, I think, where Chucky's thinking, honestly.
What are you thinking?
What are you thinking?
Where are you?
I think that's where I'm at. The only one where I'm like, maybe it's above World Is Not Enough, but then I'm like, I don't know. World Is Not Enough, at least. I don't know. There's something about that movie that I also don't like, though.
That movie is classic Bond and with a really compelling fresh bad guy.
Yes,
in the
and
form
it's a
of
villain that I'm
this
like,
woman,
okay,
you
it's
know?
a woman villain, and it's a little different, and it's at least it sticks out, and I remember it.
It's got fun, but and that's the thing. The eternal
some
question
fun
with this
things.
is always going to be that spectrum we talk about every time, which is the fun, goofy Bond.
Okay, now you're
and then
selling
the serious
this to me.
stuff.
Chucky, you're selling a number 10 to me now, because when you say it that way, I'm like, yeah, View to a Kill, I chastise the shit out of it for the fucking fire truck scene. But it does have Mayday. It does have Christopher Walken in one of his best performances of all time.
It's got fun Bond.
You know, it's got fun Bond elements, and I do like that. I do like fun.
That initial
fun
scene
Bond
is
thing.
him. He jumps in the iceberg sub and bangs a chick, and it's like this classic Bond. That's some classic Bond stuff.
And then For Your Eyes Only, it's like it's still. I think For Your Eyes Only is still pretty good, but like story wise, it's like the thing that I harped on a little bit about that movie was just the end of it, where it's like
That's Dayton, comrade.
Again, it's a real world politics movie where they're trying to throw more about like what's going on currently in the world, and that's where I'm like, yeah, I could see it living right next to those movies. That's kind of where I'm at. It's like, yes, sometimes we come into those like it's in the middle. Looking up the list, I'm like, maybe that's where it's at.